This child has not yet reached the third step, yet he dares to challenge me. If he breaks open the gate of void, I fear I won't be his match. Moreover, he knows about my past, clearly coming from the inner realm. Such a person must die. It's a pity that here, on the Emperor's Star, I cannot strike to kill. See, Mozhe did not retreat. Instead, as his eyes narrowed, a cold light flashed in them. However, just as this cold light emerged, his expression changed drastically, and he spat out a mouthful of blood, his body retreating suddenly. Damn it, the Palm Sovereign was right. All illusory flame cultivators must die. Damn, this illusory flame cannot be dodged. As soon as one's emotions stir, it will burn. If it continues like this battle will not be in my favor. Without thinking, Mozhe raised his right hand and swept it forward. A piece of white silk suddenly appeared in his hand, and on this white silk, there was a bloodstain shaped like a plum blossom. The blood was eye-catching, looking horrifyingly vivid. As Mozhe flicked the white silk, it immediately flew into the air. The bloodstain on it transformed into a red mist, spreading in front of him. From within the mist, a faint sigh could be heard. Through Wang Lin's eyes, he could clearly see that within the red mist, a graceful figure suddenly appeared. The figure's face was unclear, but it wore a white veil. As soon as it appeared, its jade hand lifted and pressed toward the nearby ancient demon soul. A force of time immediately emanated from the woman's jade hand, causing the space in front of her to twist and envelop the ancient demon soul. All this happened in an instant. Wang Lin took a step forward. With a wave of his right hand, the ancient god star mark on his forehead began to rotate rapidly, and a faint glow flashed from the first star in the center of his brow. In the blink of an eye, a massive furnace materialized in front of him, roaring into existence. The furnace was enormous, and upon appearing, it radiated an ancient, overwhelming aura. What was even more astonishing was that the moment the furnace appeared, it immediately enveloped both Mozhe and the red mist figure before him. The royal ancient god artifact, Celestial Emperor Furnace. Mozhe's expression changed immediately. He looked up sharply and stepped forward, intending to escape the furnace with the red mist figure. But just as he was about to move, Wang Lin's eyes burned with a red light, and he raised his right hand, pointing at Mozhe. He muttered a low growl, "Freeze! Freeze! Freeze!" 3 words of freeze thundered through the air. Wang Lin spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood, his expression immediately weakening, but the madness in his eyes only intensified. The backlash of his power, which exceeded his limits, exploded at that moment. Mozhe's body froze for a brief instant, giving Wang Lin a tremendous opportunity. Royal artifact, opened the furnace. Wang Lin, disregarding his injuries, made a hand seal and swept his hands apart. The Celestial Emperor Furnace in the air immediately began to rotate, emitting an ancient aura. Today, I, Wang Lin, shall refine this third step great power. With a single step forward, Wang Lin spun around and sat on top of the enormous furnace. He slammed his hands down onto the furnace lid. His left eye blazed with fiery light, and the 9 colored flames poured out, swirling around the furnace. His right eye revealed the thunder diagram once more, transforming into endless thunder, which merged into the furnace. The fire aided the thunder's power, and the thunder strengthened the fire, creating a violent process of refinement. This scene immediately caused everyone around to be blown away, but none of the cultivators who had been observing this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity were willing to give up. They all looked on in shock. Refining a third-step great power. Throughout history, no one has ever heard of someone refining a third-step great power. This third young emperor actually possesses such cultivation. Incredible! Unbelievable! Has the third young emperor gone mad? Does he think he's refining pills? An uproar of astonishment echoed, louder than ever. Not to mention them, even the old vermilion bird's eyes widened. He hadn't expected Wang Lin to defeat Mozhe. He had only hoped for a draw between the two to solidify Wang Lin's reputation. With a second-step cultivation, going toe-to-toe with a third-step great power was already an earth-shattering feat. Though his hidden assistance played a role, it was still an undeniable fact. But now, Wang Lin was actually trying to refine Mozhe. This scene made the old vermilion bird gasp in surprise. Good. As expected of my clan's descendant. Regardless of whether he succeeds in refining him or not, to have such ambition and courage, this child is destined to be a hero. The old vermilion bird laughed heartily, his eyes filled with pride. Across the entire sky, apart from the realm of devotional power sealed by the ancient breath leaf, only the massive furnace remained. Wang Lin sat atop it, continuously circulating his primordial energy, manipulating the origin source, causing thunder and fire to roar as they merged into the Celestial Emperor Furnace, setting the refining process in motion. The Celestial Emperor Furnace is an ancient godly royal artifact, with a power capable of shaking the heavens and earth. At this moment, it is being controlled by Wang Lin, a royal ancient god, and unleashes an overwhelming force. The ancient god star mark on Wang Lin's forehead rapidly spins, and waves of ancient god power surge from his body, violently pouring into the Celestial Emperor Furnace. Inside the furnace, Mozhe looks around, surrounded by chaos. His expression turns grim as he realizes that he's been schemed against by Wang Lin, trapping him in this strange furnace. A mere furnace dares to trap me. Mozhe chants a spell, suddenly waving his hands. His entire body is enveloped in purple hue, transforming into two enormous purple hands that strike the furnace walls. The two purple hands quickly collide with the furnace walls. A thunderous roar erupts, causing the entire furnace to shake violently. Wang Lin, feeling the tremor from within the furnace, his eyes gleaming coldly, spits blood onto the furnace. He closes his eyes and desperately circulates the power within his body to continue the refining process. What kind of treasure is this? Mozhe continues to unleash divine powers within the furnace, but the resilience of this furnace leaves him in a dark and brooding mood. As he keeps attacking, a scorching heat rapidly condenses inside the furnace. Amidst the rising temperature, piercing howls can be heard from all directions, gradually growing louder. Mozhe's eyes flash with brilliance as he looks around, his expression immediately changing drastically. Surrounding him are numerous illusory souls, each enormous in size, ancient demons, and ancient monsters. The sheer number of these souls is uncountable, and their wailing cries pierce Mozhe's mind, causing his pupils to contract. These illusory souls swirl around Mozhe's body, their sorrowful cries growing more intense. These souls are all the beings who have been refined to death in this furnace, from the ancient past to the present. The ancient demon soul, entangled with the white silk red mist, flashes backward and merges with the surrounding illusory souls, indistinguishable from one another. The red mist contracts, and the woman in white silk silently stands beside Mozhe. She doesn't speak, her face remains unclear, but the tenderness in her eyes is unmistakable. Mozhe retracts his gaze, coldly staring upward. He says in a chilling voice, "This little brat has many treasures, but if he thinks he can trap me, he is greatly mistaken." With a cold snort, Mozhe raises his right hand and suddenly sweeps it forward, shouting, "Seven-colored void nails." As his words exit, 29 rays of seven-colored light appear in front of him. The rays cross and instantly illuminate the furnace. The illusory souls surrounding it retreat in fear, clearly terrified of the 29 nails that have suddenly appeared. "Seven-colored nails, break this furnace for me." Mozhe swings his sleeve, and the 29 colored rays immediately scream with a deafening sound as they race towards the walls of the furnace. Boom, boom, boom. Loud crashes echo as the 29 seven-colored nails are driven directly into the furnace walls, puncturing deeply into the furnace. Outside, Wang Lin, seated in meditation, suddenly opens his eyes. Beneath him, the Celestial Emperor Furnace rumbles as sharp spikes suddenly protrude from its surface. A total of 29 spikes, glowing with seven-colored light, seem to be breaking open the Celestial Emperor Furnace. Wang Lin's eyes flash with cold light. He raises his right hand and sweeps the air, causing a jade bottle to appear in his palm. The Demon Soul Vase. Holding the vase, Wang Lin bites the tip of his tongue, spitting out ancient god blood onto it, and murmurs, "In the name of my royal ancient god clan, summon 30,000 ancient demons to aid me in refining." Demonic energy bursts from the vase's opening. Shadows of ancient demons roar into existence, and after absorbing Wang Lin's blood, they fiercely charge towards the Celestial Emperor Furnace. Inside the furnace, Mozhe's eyes are filled with madness. He growls, and with a sweeping motion, a beast bone appears in his hand. It is a small bone, less than 3 feet in length, seemingly ordinary, but with a clear handprint etched into it. This handprint is deeply embedded in the bone, and even the ridges of the palm can be clearly seen. "A mere furnace, let me show you how to break it." This beast bone was a gift from the Palm Sovereign, and the handprint on it was left by the Sovereign himself. It contains the power of a single palm strike from the Palm Sovereign. Mozhe's gaze flickers with complexity as he raises his right hand, about to press the handprint on the beast bone. At that moment, a faint sigh is heard from behind him. "Sima, come home with me, please." Mozhe's right hand trembles, his face contorting with internal struggle. The tiny firefly-like glow between his eyebrows shakes violently. We'll return the cultivation to him and go home together, please. At this moment, outside the celestial emperor furnace, Wang Lin's eyes glow with an eerie light. He forms a hand seal and exhales a deep breath. This invisible breath lands on the furnace, scattering and expanding. Taoist Arts. Dream Tao. Throughout his life, Wang Lin created 3 unique arts, Remnant Night, Flowing Moon, and then, during the events of Heaven Defying, within the depths of the Tao realm, he forged his first true Taoist art. Dream Tao. Even with his current cultivation, Wang Lin would need to exercise extreme caution to fully unleash Remnant Night. Altering the trajectory of a planet or the stars in the sky, turning day into night and night into dawn, harnessing the force of first light, it was an overwhelming power, even for him. As for Flowing Moon, though slightly less destructive, it wielded the law of time, which no one under the heavens could resist or defend against. Time present in all things, invisible, yet as absolute as the heavenly Tao itself. Night over a broken world, time flowing like moonlight, a dream returning to the ancient Tao. Wang Lin's third divine ability was born after his battle with Waterpath Master, when he was gravely wounded and on the brink of death. With the help of the boundary-sealing sovereign and heaven-defying, he stepped into a mysterious and indescribable state, the Tao realm. Within that realm, 2 divine techniques emerged in his mind. The first was from the land of demonic spirits, the one that had severely injured Tian Yunzi, who was undergoing the heavenly decay, and had critically damaged one of the 8-star ancient gods who protected the ancient demon. A divine art called Dream of Returning to Antiquity. The second was the first Taoist art Wang Lin had ever encountered, back in the 7-colored realm, where an elder from the Seal Annihilation clan had unleashed the art of Tao dissolution. These 2 arts, profound and terrifying, were carved deeply into Wang Lin's memory, impossible to erase, etched into his soul. In 10 years within the Tao realm, Wang Lin comprehended these 2 peerless techniques, Dream of Returning to Antiquity and Art of Tao Dissolution. Dream of Returning to Antiquity was a divine ability of the ancient gods, originally beyond the reach of mortals. Even Wang Lin, despite being an ancient god himself, couldn't use it by nature. But fate had always entwined fortune with danger in his life. The art of Tao Dissolution from the elder of the Seal Annihilation clan opened a door for him, a path into the mysteries of Taoist arts. This art was simply too immense to grasp under normal circumstances. Yet within the Tao realm, through immense willpower and perseverance, Wang Lin merged the art of Tao Dissolution with Dream of Returning to Antiquity and created an entirely new Taoist art. Dream Tao. Back outside the rift near the Cloud Sea Demon sect, Wang Lin used it just briefly, enough to nearly shatter the Tao heart of a demon sect elder undergoing the heavenly decay, without the elder even noticing. Had Wang Lin not pointed it out afterward, that man's Tao heart would have collapsed, his Tao intent disintegrated, and death would have been inevitable. Dream Tao is complex in theory, but in practice, it's a type of heart demon. It transforms the opponent's Tao intent into their own inner demon, corrupting their foundation, leading to self-destruction. Even a cultivator without a firm grasp of enlightenment still possesses a Tao heart, and this inner demon becomes Wang Lin himself. Taoist arts are among the most profound mysteries of heaven and earth. Even third-step cultivators rarely master them. To possess even one is a supreme fortune. Someone as powerful as the Blue Dream Tao Sovereign had only a handful. Dreaming back to ancient times doesn't physically transport someone. It dives into their memory. While Wang Lin couldn't replicate the full Tao dissolution technique of the Seal Annihilation clan, he could implant an illusory memory into his enemy's mind. That illusory memory would linger forever, unable to be erased, eventually becoming truth. And that is how a heart demon is born. The breath that Wang Lin exhaled landed on the celestial emperor furnace, instantly merging with it. It was Wang Lin's Tao breath. Mozhe turned to look at the ghostly shadow behind him, eyes filled with shock. He stood frozen. This shadow had been with him for tens of thousands of years. It had become a part of his life. And yet, in all those millennia, she had never once spoken a word. She should have been dead. She was the deepest pain buried in his heart. The white silk, her suicide sash, still bore a spot of plum blossom-shaped blood, formed by a mouthful of grief-filled blood Mozhe had coughed up in sorrow. His body trembled. The sudden change, the unexpected voice, it left him in a daze. He forgot the beast bone in his hand, forgot he was supposed to press his palm against its imprint. The small, firefly-sized spark on his brow flickered violently like a candle flame swaying in the wind. "Sister," Is that you? Was that you speaking? Mozhe stared blankly at the illusory female shadow, eyes misting, tears blurring his vision. Brother, come quick, some purple orchids have grown here. Brother, don't keep sleeping, you promised we'd go play today. Brother. In the Cloud Sea Star domain, on a floating continent, there was a mortal village. In it, a girl about 7 or 8 pouted and kept pushing the boy sleeping beside her. Xiaolan, just let me sleep a bit more. Last night, I went with Hu Zi and the others to steal eggs from the Su family's chickens. I'm exhausted. The boy, a little older, 8 or 9, cracked open his sleepy eyes, muttered a few words, and drifted back to sleep. Time passed, invisible and silent, year after year. Brother, Hu Zi bullied me today. He kissed me when I wasn't looking. On a small village path, a boy and girl walked slowly under the setting sun. Their shadows stretched long behind them. The young boy had a herb basket on his back, and as he walked, he kept yawning. The girl by his side, dressed in a floral cloth dress, appeared to be around 13 or 14. She held a weed in her hand, speaking while tugging at the grass forcefully. Brother, did you hear me? The girl said, glaring at the boy and raising her voice. I heard you, Xiaolan. Our parents are gone, and Aunt Hu Zi has taken care of us all these years. I think Hu Zi is a good person. You're not a child anymore, so why not marry him? The boy yawned again and turned to his sister. How can you be a brother like this? You clearly like Hong Jie, but now you want to marry me off to her younger brother. You're just trying to get close to her. I don't have a brother like you. The girl stomped her foot and glared fiercely at him. The boy's face turned slightly red. He gave an awkward laugh and quickly changed the topic, saying something to distract her. Soon, the two of them were laughing again, walking further and further away. Time, like a wheel, spun without notice, carrying away the thoughts of youth. Brother, Hong Jie already has someone she likes, and you. The once naive girl had now blossomed into a beautiful young woman, at the age when flowers were meant to bloom. At this moment, the girl looked at the frail boy in front of her, biting her lower lip and speaking softly. The boy's body was thin and short, his skin slightly dark, looking as though he were plagued by illness. Yet, his eyes were bright, like sparks that, in the girl's heart, were eternal. Over the years, the girl had known that although her brother never spoke about it, he had always treated her very well. Whenever there was something she liked, he would do everything to get it for her. The boy flashed a smile, his teeth white. As he smiled, it seemed his spirits lifted, and hearing the girl's words, he reached out and patted her head. Don't think too much. Your brother is not that fragile. My dream is to become an immortal. After your wedding with Hu Zi in a few days, I'll be leaving for a while to seek a master on the Immortal Mountain. The girl's face flushed red, and she whispered, Hu Zi is annoying. I told him before, if Hong Jie doesn't marry you, I won't marry him either. The boy laughed heartily, his eyes soft. All right, you're growing up now, almost an adult. Don't always have such a child's temper. My dream really is to become an immortal. I don't want to live an ordinary life here. The boy looked up, gazing at the pitch-black sky. My life, Mozhe's life, will never be that ordinary. Xiaolan, wait for your brother. Once I've mastered the Tao, I'll come back and help you and Hu Zi live forever. Maybe by then, I'll even have a few nephews. Haha, the boy said, his face showing happiness. The girl gazed blankly at her brother. Since their parents' death, he had become her everything, always protecting her. Her eyes reddened, and she lowered her head, softly saying, Brother, you can do it. Xiaolan will wait for you to return. All right, when your wedding day comes, I'll prepare plenty of dowries for you, so you'll marry with honor. The boy looked at his sister with affection in his eyes. Days later, the sound of joyful music echoed through the quiet village. The girl, dressed in bridal robes and covered by a veil, was climbing into a flower sedan chair. At that moment, she lifted a corner of the veil, looking into the distance, her expression anxious. Where has brother gone? Why hasn't he come back yet? The wedding in the village attracted the attention of the neighbors, making the scene very lively. Many children were laughing, running around the flower sedan chair, and singing cheerful songs. The elderly onlookers also wore kind smiles as they watched this joyful scene. None of them noticed the group of more than 10 fierce horses approaching the village from the road outside. On these horses rode several burly men, each with a fierce and intimidating expression, loudly chatting as they moved forward. The sound of hooves, thundering like a dragon's roar, spread through the earth, causing the ground to tremble and the vibrations to reach the village. Not far off, there was a mountain, always shrouded in mist. It was rumored to be home to immortals. At this moment, a thin young boy, with a proud smile, hurried down the mountain path. Behind him was the herb basket, filled with various herbs, including a ginseng. This ginseng was as thick as a baby's arm, with long tendrils, and emanated a faint aura. This ginseng king must be over 100 years old. It took me several days to find it. It should be enough for Xiaolan's dowry. The boy's smile grew wider as he reached the halfway point of the mountain and casually glanced at the village below. But with that glance, he froze. His body suddenly became motionless. Down in the village, he saw towering flames. Climbing the mountain was difficult, but descending was even harder. With a sudden rush, the boy immediately fell, his body scraped in multiple places, blood flowing freely. But it seemed as if he had forgotten the pain, disregarding everything as he scrambled to his feet and continued running. It must be water, it must be water. Nothing will happen, nothing will happen. The boy's lips trembled as he ran frantically, the medicine basket behind him swaying, dropping some herbs. But the boy paid no attention, his only focus on running down. Along the way, he tripped several times. At one point, a branch scraped his right leg, leaving a wound, but he didn't even glance at it. His eyes were entirely consumed with urgency. After a long while, panting heavily and his face pale, the boy descended the mountain and raced down the narrow path toward the village. His heart trembled, fear spreading throughout his body. It won't happen. It definitely won't happen. The boy's heart shouted and pleaded, everything before his eyes blurred, only the road ahead clear. He used all his strength to run along the path, reaching the official road outside the village. Another mile forward, and he would be at the village. But here, even though the village was out of sight, the boy could already see the towering flames. Faintly, he seemed to hear piercing screams. The scream was so deafening it seemed to shake the earth itself, and the ground trembled. Little sister. The boy went mad and sprinted forward. At that moment, along the official road ahead, the ground tremor grew more intense. A line of more than 10 fierce horses thundered toward him. On top of them were over a dozen rugged men, some of whom had disheveled clothes. Their laughter rang out as they moved forward. Haha, didn't expect this little village to have so many beautiful women. If it weren't for the boss's orders, I'd want to capture a few. Yeah, especially that new bride. She's quite something. The group on the horses soon met the boy running desperately. One of the men raised his whip, cracking it with a sharp sound, striking the boy, sending him flying to the roadside. Little bastard, daring to block our horse gang's path. Get out of the way. The boy's body shuddered as he was whipped and struck hard, his body crashing to the ground with a loud thud, knocking him unconscious. Amid the cruel laughter, the group of over 10 horses galloped away. Time slowly passed. Nightfall came, the cold like a tidal wave sweeping across the land. The boy shivered as he slowly opened his eyes, dazed and pale as a ghost. He struggled to stand, mumbling, staggering toward the village. It won't happen. My sister won't be hurt. No. After a long time, the boy finally reached the village, now burned to the ground, its ruins bathed in the pale moonlight. The boy's body shook violently, his gaze fixed in shock as he looked ahead, his eyes completely overtaken by fear. He let out a heart-wrenching cry and ran forward desperately. Sister, sister. Xiaolan. As he ran into the village, a pungent smoke filled the air, mixed with the overwhelming stench of blood. The ground was littered with corpses, their eyes wide open, staring blankly at the dark sky. This scene pierced the boy's heart, nearly breaking him. Every body was someone he knew, someone dear to him. Around him, the houses had been mostly burned down. Ahead, only one bright bridal palanquin stood untouched, its vibrant color a stark contrast against the surrounding ruins, a sight both shocking and mournful. The boy bit his lower lip, his body trembling, filled with indescribable terror. He approached the palanquin and entered the burning house nearby. There, lying in the ashes, was Hu Zi. Beside Hu Zi was a naked female corpse, his sister, Hong Hong. This sight nearly shattered the boy. He stumbled deeper into the house and found his sister. The house was burned, but a few beams remained unscathed. A piece of white silk hung from one of them, and there, hanging by the silk, was a woman's body, a chilling sight. The woman's clothes were torn, her 7 orifices bleeding, her eyes still wide open, as though gazing into the distance, waiting for her family. The boy stared at the body, his chest heaving as he spat out a mouthful of blood. "Sister!" His voice, filled with utter anguish, echoed through the night and across the desolate village, lingering for a long time. "Stop crying, Xiaolan. Don't worry. Big brother is right here. I'll pick those purple orchids for you. All right. Stop crying. Xiaolan, this is the 100th time you've asked where mom and dad are. Didn't big brother already tell you? They went to a faraway place. They'll be watching over us, watching you grow up, watching you get married. Stop crying." If you don't like Huzi, then forget it. Big brother isn't like you said, looking at Huzi's sister. "My dream is to become an immortal. Xiaolan, you have to wait here for me. When I come back, I'll make sure you and Huzi live forever. When you get married, I'll prepare a lot of dowries for you, so you can marry in style." The young man's eyes were filled with blood tears as he collapsed, gazing at his sister, his eyes hollow and empty. Several days later, he buried all the bodies in the village, but his sister's body was laid to rest alone on the mountain, at a high position surrounded by numerous purple orchids. The fragrance of the flowers lingered in the air, and if one sat there, they could see the world beyond the mountain, stretching far and wide. His sister hadn't died in that humiliation but had taken her own life by hanging herself. The white silk she used to hang herself, the young man kept it close to his chest. He could faintly feel her soul, as if it still existed within that white silk. As he left the mountain village, the young man looked back at the village and took out the white silk. He could almost hear her silver bell-like laughter and words in his ears. Brother, wake up. Look, there's a bunch of purple orchids over there. Brother, where have father and mother gone? I miss them. Brother." The young man bit his lip, a few drops of fresh blood trickling down from the corner of his mouth, landing on the white silk in his hands. When the blood spread, it formed marks resembling plum blossoms. Horse gang. The young man's eyes revealed an overwhelming killing intent and hatred as he turned around and walked toward the distance, getting farther and farther away. "Brother, I will wait for you to return." Years passed like fleeting horses, and in the blink of an eye, decades had gone by. The young man's talent was beyond his own expectations, though not at the pinnacle, it was still remarkable. He joined the Breaking Heavens sect and, with a determination unlike that of ordinary people, became one of the brightest young disciples. The horse gang, over 1,400 people, all died in a rainy night, leaving not a single one alive. Even the horses were slaughtered. Among them were 7 or 8 elderly people, whose suffering before death was unimaginable, howling for almost half a month before they died. Their souls were extracted, subjected to the torment of soul refining, unable to enter reincarnation. Yet, Mozhe's pain still pierced his heart like needles, constantly seeping through. The villain who had humiliated his sister had died years ago from illness. Under Mozhe's soul-searching, he learned that the man had not suffered much before his death, and he could not accept this. Returning to the mountain gate, a century had passed again. Mozhe's cultivation reached the nascent soul stage, making him the strongest among the younger generation. He was even noticed by the sect leader of Breaking Heaven and accepted as a disciple. That winter, Mozhe descended the mountain again, using his divine arts to calculate the reincarnated form of the villain from years ago after entering the cycle of reincarnation, ready to kill. What kind of hatred could drive someone to annihilate an enemy completely, even if that enemy's soul has already entered reincarnation and is reborn into another body? Time passed. Wang Lin saw all of this in Mozhe's memories, and he fell silent. He also saw, tens of thousands of years later, Mozhe, in that 7-colored realm, watching his fellow disciples die, his body marked with 7-colored nails, being taken away by the Palm Sovereign. I, Mozhe, though driven out of Breaking Heaven's sect, am still a person of the inner realm. Even if I die, I will not become a dog of the outer realm. How could I forsake everything just for the sake of surviving, just for the temptation of your trifling third step? If death is my fate, then so be it. Old man, not only can I ensure that you won't die, I can also materialize your sister. I can't bring her back to life, but I can make her stay by your side forever. If your cultivation succeeds, perhaps, you may meet someone who can bring her back to life. But if you die now, everything will return to the void. A deep, ancient voice echoed from the heavens and earth, reaching Mozhe's heart. Mozhe's heart trembled. Come with me. From now on, you will no longer be Mozhe of the inner realm. You will be my disciple, granted the name Mozhe. Inside the celestial emperor furnace, Mozhe's eyes blurred with tears. The small firefly-sized light in the center of his brow began to spread, eventually occupying his entire heavenly spirit. Outside the celestial emperor furnace, Wang Lin sat cross-legged on top of the furnace, his eyes opening in response to the gaze of thousands of cultivators watching from afar. His eyes were filled with confusion. After a long time, Wang Lin sighed softly, stood up, and took a step toward the distance. With a wave of his right hand, the celestial emperor furnace shook violently, but it vanished between the heavens and earth. Mozhe's figure appeared. Dream thou art. Wang Lin didn't intentionally leave any specific memories in Mozhe's mind, but a few thoughts remained. He chose not to refine them. This refinement might not succeed. Mozhe still had many methods and treasures that had not been used. If the battle continued, it would have no further meaning. Mozhe stood in midair, silent for a long time. He raised his right hand, and the illusory female figure beside him disappeared into his sleeve. From his cultivation, Mozhe vaguely understood everything that had just happened. His gaze toward Wang Lin was filled with complexity. Please tell me. Were her words earlier the result of your magic, or... I don't know either. Wang Lin sighed softly. If that day, I were to become Sima Imo, and his sister would become Xun'er, how would I choose? Wang Lin couldn't bring himself to think of the answer. Or perhaps, just as he answered Sima Imo, maybe he already had his answer. Yun Luo, along with him, left the Emperor Star under Wang Lin's gaze, disappearing into the distance. This battle, without a conclusion, was beyond the expectations of all the cultivators here. Even the old vermilion bird hadn't foreseen it, yet with his formidable cultivation, he could vaguely sense something. Nevertheless, it did not hinder Wang Lin's reputation from rising in this land of falling stars. In the eyes of the tens of thousands of cultivators, just the scene of that earlier battle was enough for them to regard Wang Lin as a strong practitioner capable of contending with cultivators of the third step. The elder selection for the Falling Life Society was interrupted until now, but it resumed, though it no longer had any connection to Wang Lin. In the land of falling stars, the Fire Sparrow clan meticulously searched the wild star where Lu Jinbiao and Su Ligua had been during this period. For the Fire Sparrow clan, the trial held on the Emperor Star was a rare opportunity. During their careful search, the Fire Sparrow clan found Lu Jinbiao and his protective spirit Su Ligua, meditating deeply in the wildest, most remote area of the star. After a fierce battle, Lu Jinbiao was captured and secretly sent out of the land of falling stars, where he met with the Fire Sparrow clan ancestor on the outskirts. Lu Jinbiao's face remained grim, without a word, but he exuded the aura of a generation's grandmaster, the kind of invisible power that comes from long-term dominance, where a single word could annihilate thousands. Outside the land of falling stars, within the ancient stars, when Lu Jinbiao was brought out by the Fire Sparrow clan, the Fire Sparrow clan ancestor, who had been cautiously staying outside and not daring to step inside, suddenly flashed with ecstatic joy in his eyes. He stepped forward, ignoring the Fire Sparrow clan's people's greetings. His right hand rose, turning into a wave of flame, and directly slapped towards Lu Jinbiao. Lu Jinbiao showed no panic. His eyes revealed endless years of experience as he coldly stared at the approaching Fire Sparrow clan ancestor. His calm gaze, when it fell on the Fire Sparrow clan ancestor, caused a shock in the elder's mind. It must be him. This pressure and momentum can only come from those who have long been in high positions. If he is truly a vermilion bird, he should be like this. With a cold grunt, the Fire Sparrow clan ancestor's right hand struck down heavily upon Lu Jinbiao, and the fiery power surged into Lu Jinbiao's body. After a sweeping assault, the elder frowned. The Fire Sparrow clan, attacking me while I was in seclusion, just like your ancestors, a mere clown. Lu Jinbiao sneered. The Fire Sparrow clan ancestor's eyes flashed, his doubts beginning to fade. He had previously observed and noticed that the firepower within the opponent's body was scarce. Hearing these words, the doubts did not entirely vanish, and he raised his hand again. Suddenly, Lu Jinbiao's right arm trembled violently, and a deep wound appeared, blood pouring out. The blood was immediately absorbed by the Fire Sparrow clan ancestor, who transformed it into a blood sphere in his hand. After a quick sniff, his joy intensified. After a brief hesitation, he swallowed it. Once the blood entered his stomach, it turned into an extremely potent flame power that exploded within the Fire Sparrow clan ancestor's body. A faint, ethereal image appeared behind him. In that illusion, a fiery bird with flames all over its body spread its wings and let out a long cry. In front of it, a smaller vermilion bird appeared, its figure vague, seemingly gravely injured and dim-eyed. This vermilion bird struggled with the fiery bird, soon being devoured by it. After the devouring, the fiery bird's flames surged, and it began to subtly transform, taking on more and more of the vermilion bird's shape. Good. It really is the vermilion bird. The Fire Sparrow clan ancestor's eyes gleamed with wild joy. With a hearty laugh, his right hand suddenly raised and landed on Lu Jinbiao's head. The Fire Sparrow clan ancestor's cultivation reached heaven-defying heights, with exceptional intellect and sharp suspicion. Despite his suspicions fading after numerous tests, he still used his soul search technique. To him, everything in the world could be false, but the soul search technique was the only real method. His right hand pressed against Lu Jinbiao's skull, and a fiery force erupted as he quickly began the soul search. Memories flashed before the ancestor's mind, and after a brief moment, the Fire Sparrow clan ancestor's expression became satisfied. Despite lingering doubts, this person was undoubtedly the 6th-generation vermilion bird. With a wave of his sleeve, the Fire Sparrow clan ancestor swept Lu Jinbiao up, passed by his clan members, and disappeared into the void in a flash, hastily returning to the Fire Sparrow clan headquarters using his divine power. As the Fire Sparrow clan ancestor departed, Wang, seated cross-legged beside the old vermilion bird's dragon fishing lake on the Emperor Star, suddenly opened his eyes, revealing a flash of brilliance. Lu Jinbiao's art of deception is indeed brilliant. Even the Fire Sparrow clan ancestor was deceived, without finding any flaws. Now, everything must be prepared in detail, just waiting for Lu Jinbiao to be brought into the Fire Sparrow clan sacred land. Wang Lin's eyes flickered, and his hands swiftly formed seals, creating a series of marks that spread around his body. More and more seals were formed, and after a long time, a formation appeared around Wang Lin's body. This formation had the effect of teleportation. Once activated, it could allow Wang Lin to travel through space in a special manner. Ancestor, I still have a servant in the land of falling stars. His name is Zhang Dahong. Please take care of him, Wang Lin said calmly as he opened his eyes at dusk. Before him, the old vermilion bird sat by the lake, holding a fishing rod, with a jug of wine beside him. Upon hearing Wang Lin's words, the old vermilion bird turned to glance at him, a look of kindness in his eyes. Is everything ready? Wang Lin nodded. There are still a few magic treasures that need to be refined. Just waiting for the signal from there. The old vermilion bird set down his rod, took a sip of wine, and said in a deep voice, I have already given you control over the flame dragon. You are about to leave, and this journey is fraught with danger. I don't know when we will meet again. If you have any other requests, speak them now. Wang Lin fell silent, looking at the old vermilion bird. Despite only spending a few days together, the old vermilion bird's selfless help and protective nature had given Wang Lin a rare sense of warmth. Now, as they were about to part, a subtle sadness filled his heart. Seeing Wang Lin in silence, the old vermilion bird's expression softened even more. He smiled and said, If we meet again, don't be like a child who can't bear to part. When I see you next time, I hope you can shock me again. Wang Lin took a deep breath, nodded, and said solemnly, Ancestor, I would like the ancient soul seal technique from the arena. You want the ancient soul seal? The old vermilion bird pondered for a moment before slowly speaking. That ancient soul seal was taken by the first ancestor long ago. Even I don't have the cultivation method. Fine, I'll give you this seal for self-defense. You can study it in your own time. With your comprehension, you might discover something. The old vermilion bird raised his right hand and reached toward the sky. Far away, the earth rumbled, and the sky suddenly darkened. Thunderclouds swirled, and in an instant, a dim light flickered across the heavens. Gradually, a massive turtle beast appeared in mid-air. Its eyes were cold as it lowered its head to gaze at the old vermilion bird. The old vermilion bird made a hand seal and pointed at it. The turtle glowed once again, shrinking rapidly. The more it shrank, the more intense the glow became, until it was a small turtle shell no bigger than a palm. The glow illuminated the world, like the light of the moon, enveloping the land. With a wave of his hand, the old vermilion bird sent the turtle shell toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin caught it, took a quick glance, and then stored it away. He was about to bow and speak to the old vermilion bird, but was interrupted. No need to thank me. Family gives things to family. Is it necessary to thank? The old vermilion bird said with a more serious tone, clearing his throat. If you're grateful, help me with something. Please speak, ancestor. If it's something I can do, I will definitely help. Wang Lin said with certainty, his voice firm. The old vermilion bird's face turned red, and after putting down his fishing rod, he rubbed his hands and murmured, Your vermilion bird awakened 4 times already. You should have already given the vermilion bird mark to the clan members. I hope when you choose the 7th generation of vermilion birds, well? Wang Lin looked at the old vermilion bird, waiting for him to finish. Well, choose wisely, the old vermilion bird said, blinking his eyes. You mustn't choose someone of loose character, do you understand? Wang Lin frowned, not fully understanding at first. After a brief pause, he nodded and said, Rest assured, ancestor. I will be cautious in selecting the 7th generation of vermilion birds. I won't let what happened with the 3rd generation happen again. That's not what I meant. The old vermilion bird rubbed his hands again and gritted his teeth. What I mean is, the 7th generation must not be someone who is a womanizer. Why don't you get it? You're supposed to be so insightful. Wang Lin was stunned for a moment, then his expression became confused. He nodded and said, Understood. I won't choose a womanizer for the 7th generation. After all, excessive infatuation with beauty isn't beneficial for cultivation. The old vermilion bird's eyes widened, and he shouted in a low voice, It's not about excessive infatuation with beauty, but any infatuation. You can't even touch it. Can't you understand this? Why do I have to spell it out for you? What I need is someone with unshakable resolve. Wang Lin blinked, his face showing confusion. He nodded again and said, I understand, ancestor. I'll make sure to choose someone with strong willpower. After all, being too captivated by beauty will only harm one's cultivation. The old vermilion bird gave a long sigh, muttering to himself, You better choose someone from the younger generation, or their primordial young might be broken, and they won't be able to cultivate my methods. Just pick a child, and next time we meet, bring them to me. Remember, their primordial young must be intact. The old vermilion bird added, a little exasperated. I've never understood why you younger ones practice dual cultivation. I've never done it, and I'm as energetic as ever. No need for any of that nonsense. Wang Lin stood there in a daze, staring blankly at the old vermilion bird, unable to speak for a while. After a moment, he gave a bitter smile and nodded. The old vermilion bird let out a long sigh of relief. He had placed all his hopes on Wang Lin. Seeing him nod, the old vermilion bird gave a dry cough and said, My divine art can only unleash its full power if one's primordial yang remains intact, not because of any strange preference. That said, I won't have you help me for nothing. I'll teach you a divine art in return. This technique is one of the 3 strongest arts of our vermilion bird clan, passed down from an ancient immortal venerable. Although your primordial yang has been lost, you should still be able to cultivate it to some degree. The power of this art is immense. It burns through your lifespan, so do not use it lightly. Think of it as a means to preserve your life in desperate times.